If you are watching this right now, maybe it is not a coincidence. Maybe you found yourself here after a moment when everything seemed to fall apart. After a loss that no one around you can fully understand. After a night when you asked yourself, will this ever get better? There is a message for you today. Not a message of empty comfort. Not easy words to cover a deep wound. But a truth that can change the way you see everything you are going through right now. Stay with me. This message was made for you. Losing something or someone who was central to your life is one of the most disorienting experiences a human being can go through. It is not just sadness. It feels like the ground disappeared beneath your feet. You wake up in the morning and, for just 1 second, everything seems normal. Then reality hits, and it is heavy. Maybe you lost someone you loved, someone you imagined would be by your side for much longer. And now the chair is empty, and the house feels bigger than it should. Or maybe the loss was different. A relationship you believed would last forever. A dream you nurtured for years that never came to be. A job, an opportunity, a season of life that simply ended. And what hurts is not only the loss itself. It is the feeling that you are supposed to move on, but you do not know where to go. You no longer know who you are without what you lost. Someone may have told you, time heals everything. But it feels like time has passed and the pain is still there. Changed, maybe, but present. And in the middle of all of this, a question that many people are too afraid to ask out loud. Where is God in this? Why did He allow this? Does He even care? If you have ever asked that question, you are not alone. And that question does not make you weak. It makes you human. Today I want to tell you a story. A real story. About a man who lost everything he loved and found something he never imagined he would discover on the other side of pain. A few years ago, there was a man named Samuel. Samuel was not famous. He was not wealthy. He was not the kind of person who appears in history books. He was a simple man. He worked in a small town. He had a family he deeply loved. He had plans, hopes, a life built brick by brick over many years, and he was grateful, not in a performative way. Samuel genuinely woke up every morning and thought, I have everything I need. But life has a cruel way of testing what we believe we have. And for Samuel, the test came all at once, not gradually, all at once. In less than 2 years, he lost the job that had supported his family for 14 years. His mother, the woman he considered his spiritual anchor, passed away, and the marriage he believed was solid began to crack at the edges. Samuel found himself standing in the ruins of a life he had built with such care, and the one question that took over everything was, what do I do now? The first months were the darkest. Samuel tried to keep up the appearance that he was fine, for his children, for his friends, for himself. He went to work, a temporary job he had found, far below what he was used to. He came home, he ate, he slept, and he repeated. But inside, something was breaking apart. He told me once that there were nights when he would sit on the porch, staring at the sky, feeling an anger he could not explain. Anger at God, anger at himself, anger at time that would not go back. I prayed my whole life, he said. I did what I thought was right. I was faithful. I worked hard. I loved my family. And still, look where I am. This is one of the most honest and painful forms of spiritual crisis. It is not the crisis of someone who never believed. It is the crisis of someone who truly believed and felt betrayed. Samuel began to withdraw from the people who loved him, from the community he used to attend, and from God. It was not a conscious decision. It was a silent erosion. Every week that passed without an answer, every prayer that seemed to go up and reach nowhere, slowly extinguished a little more of the flame. 6 months after his mother's death, Samuel went to her house one last time before it was sold. It was an autumn afternoon. The sunlight came through the kitchen window the same way it always had. The smell was still the same, and Samuel sat in the chair where his mother used to sit every morning, with the Bible in her lap and a cup of coffee. He stayed there for a long time, and for the first time in months, he did not try to be strong. He did not try to hold himself together. He simply wept. He wept for his mother's death. He wept for the job. He wept for the marriage that was falling apart. He wept for the version of himself he no longer knew where to find. And in the middle of those tears, he asked a question he did not expect to ask. "Mom, what would you tell me right now?" He did not hear a voice. There was no dramatic miracle in that moment. But his eyes fell on the Bible still sitting on the table, and it was open to a passage, the book of Job. Job, who lost his children, his health, his wealth, and remained standing, not without pain, not without questions, but standing. Samuel stared at those words for a long time. He told me that on that day he did not have a powerful insight. There was no instant revelation, but he had a small thought, almost insignificant. Maybe I am not at the end of the story. That is all, a small thought, but sometimes it is the small thought that opens a door. In the months that followed, Samuel began to do something different. He stopped trying to rebuild the old life and began hesitantly to ask, what could exist on the other side of this? It was not easy optimism. It was a hard choice, made every single day. A choice to not let pain have the final word. He reached out to an old friend he had drifted away from. He returned to a small group of people who gathered to read and talk. He started writing, letters to himself, to his mother, to God. And something began to happen, slowly, like the night that does not disappear all at once, but gradually, quietly becomes dawn. His marriage was not saved the way he had hoped, but it was saved in a different way. He and his wife had the most honest conversations they had shared in years, and they chose to start over, with truth, with open wounds, with intention. The job never came back to what it was. But Samuel discovered during that season of lesser work a skill he had never explored, and that skill opened a path he never would have found had he stayed in the safe place he had before. And his mother did not come back, but her legacy remained. And Samuel began to live it more consciously than he ever had before. 2 years after the darkest season of his life, Samuel was sitting with me on a Saturday afternoon, and he said something I have never forgotten. I do not give thanks for the loss. I cannot. That would be dishonest. But I give thanks for who I became on the other side of it. Because this man, I did not know him before, and I would rather be this man than the man I used to be. What Samuel discovered is not a self-help secret. It is not a technique. It is not a formula. It is an ancient truth that repeats itself in every story of real transformation. Loss is not the end of the narrative. Loss is the doorway. Think about this with me. The stories that move you the most. The books, the films, the real stories you never forget. They all have something in common. The character loses something, and it is precisely in that loss that they discover who they truly are. There is no transformed version of anyone who did not first pass through a breaking point, but there is a fundamental difference between the people who are transformed and the ones who remain trapped in the pain. The difference is not the intensity of the loss. Some of the most transformed people in history suffered the most devastating losses. The difference is a question. Not why did this happen to me, but what is this calling forth in me? It is not an easy question to ask when the pain is still fresh. It is not a question you need to answer today, but it is the question that, once you begin to ask it, changes everything. There is a concept that the Greeks called metanoia, a word we often translate as repentance, but the literal meaning is far more powerful. A change of mind, a transformation in the way you see. Pain, when walked through with courage, has the power to produce metanoia, to change not just what you think, but how you perceive. Samuel did not lose his faith in the middle of the pain. He lost the childlike version of it and found something deeper, more solid, more honest. He stopped believing in a God who protects people from difficult moments. and began to trust in a God who walks through the difficult moments with you. There is an enormous difference there. A God who spares you from pain is a God you wait for outside the suffering. A God who walks with you in the pain is a God you encounter inside of it. And perhaps that is why so many of the most profound moments of spiritual encounter that people describe did not happen on the days of celebration. They happened on the nights of crisis, not because God sends the crisis, but because in the crisis we finally stop running, and we become capable of perceiving what was always there. Maybe you are in the middle of the story Samuel was living. Maybe you still cannot see beyond the pain. Maybe the horizon still feels completely closed. And that is okay. You do not need to force a perspective that is not yet real for you. But there is one small thing I want to ask of you. Just one. Do not give up before the end of the chapter. Samuel's story could have ended on that dark porch. It could have ended the day he closed the Bible and walked out of his mother's house without looking back. But he stayed. He wept. He remained standing, even without knowing how. And 2 years later, he was a person he himself did not recognize. In a good way, in the sense that he had grown beyond what he ever imagined he was capable of. The loss you have lived is real. The pain is legitimate. Grief needs time. I am not saying you need to feel happy. I am not saying the process will be easy. I am saying that on the other side of this process, there is a version of you that does not yet exist. But that is being formed right now. Every day you choose to continue. Every time you weep but do not give up. Every moment you still ask, even without an answer, you are being shaped. And the shaping is painful. But what emerges from it carries a quality that nothing easy could ever produce. Maybe someone told you that you need to be strong, that you cannot show weakness, that you need to pull yourself together quickly. I want to tell you the opposite. The courage that matters is not the courage to feel nothing. It is the courage to feel everything, and still believe that tomorrow exists. Samuel did not overcome because he was invulnerable. Samuel overcame because he was completely vulnerable, and did not let vulnerability have the last word. You can do the same. If something inside you was stirred by this message today, if something resonated in a way you cannot fully explain, I want to invite you to do one simple thing. Write in the comments, I am not at the end of my story. Not because it is a beautiful phrase, but because it is a declaration, a choice, a small but real act of faith. And if you are carrying a specific loss today, one that is too heavy to name, know that this message reached you for a reason. You are not alone on this journey, and what you are living right now is not the end. It is the middle, and the best thing about the middle is that it is still moving, still unfolding. The story has not yet been written to the end. Thank you for staying until here. Until the next message.